Good evening, gang. It is a special Sunday night pontificating with Pete. I had been meaning to get around to this for the last few days. I didn't want to wait until Monday when we're obviously going to be going live tomorrow night at 7 p.m. with our good friend Steve Grumbine. You know, we have to always make an exception for our friends. Sometimes have to go a little earlier. I'm rocking a special shirt this evening. For those of you who can see it, stand up and show you. Let's see. This is a t-shirt that I've had since 2016. It is my Bernie Sanders, Bernie for the Future t-shirt. At the time, you didn't really know what to expect, but I certainly saw something very special in Bernie in the early summer of 2015. And yes, he did look a lot like Doc Brown from Back to the Future. There were many overlapping elements, which I thought were really good. And so naturally, I was very taken in by the whole movement, and I really thought that there was something that could happen, and naturally, it looked like there was a real chance that it would. And so Bernie built a very strong grassroots movement based on labor, among other things, but certainly was a very labor-driven movement in 2015 and 2016. And it was, in many ways, the Rainbow Coalition that Reverend Jesse Jackson had always envisioned that the Democratic Party could become. And Bernie really took it off like a rocket ship. And unfortunately, it was all for naught. The movement pretty much got chopped up and spit out, and it basically just went into the dustbin of history, which is why there was never really a solid foundation of a movement behind Bernie that could have been sustained through this sort of evolution in many ways that's happened in politics over the last decade. Now, I know a lot of people would think that, well, Trump, if he hadn't become president, would there really have been a movement behind him? I got to be honest, I think so. I think that Trump embraced the whole element of a political movement, which I think has more to do with just feeding his ego in many respects. But nevertheless, it did become a sustainable movement. And now you're seeing just how much of a solid foundation it really has. Whereas Bernie's movement never, ever really amounted to much. There was way too much infighting. There was way too many egos. But in many cases, you had people that were just out for themselves. Now, I understand, people got to make a living. People have to do things that are going to be in their best interests. I am not knocking that reality that a lot of people have to deal with on a regular basis. One of the hard parts about left politics is you're dealing with a lot of people that, in many instances, capitalism has failed them economically. And so that's why they really embrace the sort of socialist elements of these political movements. Not that I think there's anything wrong with that. I think it's perfectly understandable. It's perfectly normal. It's very hard to pay bills. We have no health care, don't have a living wage. We don't have trade schools that you can go to for no cost. We have a very dangerous situation regarding our environment, particularly when it comes to clean drinking water, air to breathe, the oceans, etc. And so I would definitely say that as much as I still think that there's got to be hope for optimism going forward, I also believe that many of the fighting elements of the Bernie movement found its way into the Trump movement. And maybe, just maybe this time around, we might have some type of real economic populism in this country. We will see very soon, within the next few days, in terms of the initial round of appointments that are going to come in the new Trump administration. It already appears that, as much as it pains for me to say this, but it does appear that Rick Scott has the inside track to become the next Senate Majority Leader. This is a position that he's been targeting for the past several years. He actually challenged McConnell a few years ago. So he's already built up some degree of goodwill and relationships, especially now that Trump is in charge, and Trump and McConnell are completely at odds with each other in terms of political direction. And so it is going to be interesting to see exactly what ends up happening as a result. Obviously, we all, anybody who watches this channel, whether they have an opinion about me or even Jen far as I'm concerned. I've always been very direct about where I stand on Rick Scott. But I also understand that if there is a goal here to try to have some semblance of not only economic populism, but sort of a libertarian anti-war movement, this is the opportunity to make it happen. It'll be interesting, but if you guys have been paying attention on social media, the MAGA movement is not messing around this time. And I think it has a lot more, like I said, of that populist libertarian lean that wasn't present in his first term and what ultimately would have been his second term. In many ways, it maybe is a blessing in disguise that he did lose in 20, and now he's coming back with pieces in place that I don't think are constricted to the DC machine that I think we're normally accustomed to seeing. And so, what ultimately will end up happening over the next several days, I think, will tell a lot about the direction that this administration is going in. I think, as I have tried to be very, very clear, particularly as it related to President Biden when his first term got underway, in his first 100 days, what we had already anticipated was not going to be much of anything in terms of policy because, of course, they didn't push the PRO Act. They allowed the likes of Sinema and Manchin to dictate the terms of the process, and that, of course, was not going to work out too well, to say the least. But the fact that President Biden said that the parliamentarian would not allow him to pass a $15 minimum wage, well, that kind of gave you an indication of what direction his campaign was ultimately going to go in. And so now, one of the more pressing elements that I think we're going to see, it's really going to come down to how much there's going to be pushback on the Zionist movement within the Trump administration. Obviously, there was very little, if any, in the Biden-Harris administration. But now it's come across the wire. It is not official yet. We don't know if she's going to accept it. My guess is she will. Elise Stefanik has been offered the UN ambassador position in the Trump administration. And so it will say a lot in terms of what direction this country is going to go in. Me want tacos, $15 minimum wage is garbage. Might as well not raise it at all. That's easy to say when people are making $8.50 an hour. Don't rain on people's parade when they're making slave wage. At least they get something. It's better that than nothing. Even though I agree, minimum wage is not the answer. Living wage is the answer, and being able to provide through a trade, for example, is definitely the way that you want to go. But don't shit on economic opportunity for people that desperately need it. That's not the answer. I do believe that there will be some positive elements to this Trump 2.0 administration because of what I'm seeing already in terms of the MAGA movement. They are definitely holding his feet to the fire. We are going to talk about this at length tomorrow night related to, obviously, Mike Pompeo will not be a part of the Trump administration. Neither will Nikki Haley, but Nikki Haley is not a surprise. I would not have anticipated that that was going to happen. But Mike Pompeo was one of Trump's loyal foot soldiers. He really was, even though he was obviously as terrible as anybody in the Trump administration between 2017 and 2021. And that, of course, mostly relates to his position on foreign policy. He was the Secretary of State, and along with John Bolton, represented the very worst of our foreign policy. Now, of course, we've gotten that in spades in the Biden administration with Tony Blinken, among other people. But it does go without saying that the fight that we're seeing already, I think, is cause for at least some cautious optimism. And one of the reasons I bring that up is because anybody who knows me knows that I am basically libertarian and I lean left, obviously on a number of progressive populist issues. But if there is one person that I do believe really captures the essence of my kind of political spirit animal, there's a few of them out there, but one of them who really speaks to me, I don't know if he speaks to you, maybe he does, maybe he doesn't, but I really do believe in the populism of Dave Smith. He is definitely somebody who speaks truth to power and hard on my sleeves. Yes, which is why single payer healthcare is the answer. And believe me, there's a lot of people who are very receptive to it that are on the political right. So it is on us to continue to connect outside of the Democratic Party with those very people that do believe in a single payer system, that understand that cutting out the for-profit middlemen, big pharma, private insurance is the way to go. And so Dave Smith was on Joe Rogan the other day, and it actually was the day after the election. So this is just a few days ago. And here's what Dave Smith had to say regarding the neoliberal class in our political system.
I hate them so much. And I really think they deserve it. And it's not just that they lie about everything. It's like they lie about everything and then they have the nerve to morally judge us. Like if you just watch even just the last few weeks of the Trump election, they're not in the business of reporting the news. They're totally just in the business of making you feel like you're a bad person if you don't fall in line with the regime. America has this giant war machine, right? Like we're just always at war. We're the most war-hungry country in the world. Even if we're taking a little bit of a break from a war, we'll fight 2 more proxy wars while we do that. America looks back at the 90s, Bill Clinton, as the time of peace and prosperity. We call it peace because we only fought a war in like Serbia and had a blockade around Iraq and were like bombing the crap out of Iraq with a few other military interventions in there too. You know, the UN estimated that Bill Clinton's sanction and bombing regime of Iraq, okay, everyone just thinks of George H.W. Bush's war and W's war, but Bill Clinton was bombing Iraq his whole, and you had a full blockade around the country. The UN estimated that 500,000 children died of starvation or malnutrition due to the blockade. Now,
and this is where the whole segment on 60 Minutes with Madeleine Albright came into question, where they said, was 500,000 Iraqi children dead worth it? And she said, yes, it is worth it. And so to me, that speaks volumes about what was ignored. Also, keep in mind, and we will address Bill Kristol tomorrow night as well. Bill Kristol wrote an article in the New York Times saying that we haven't bombed Iraq enough back in 1998. So yeah, this is not entirely surprising. It shouldn't be to any of you guys. And like I said, the populist movement that Bernie had started on the left really has completely seeped into the Trump movement on the right, or even in the center for that matter. And not that anybody like a Dave Smith identifies as a Republican or even conservative for that matter. He doesn't. He's very libertarian with a lot of left leanings. So let's hear what the rest of what he has to say.
I've heard people argue, by the way, that that number is exaggerated. Maybe it wasn't 500,000. Maybe it was only 100,000. So that's the time that we consider peace, when we were just starving 100,000 children to death in Iraq. And you, everybody in the corporate media, are in the business. Every single one of those wars, you've sold them. Everyone, my entire life, the media has sold those wars. And you're going to morally look down on me? You're going to judge me? Motherfucker, you're in the business of baby murder. Get the fuck out of here. You're looking down, judging an American because maybe I'm going to vote for Donald Trump, or maybe I dare to question the results of the last election. Fuck you, dude.
Can't say I don't agree with him. I really try to get myself centered here. It's always different when it's only flying solo on a round table, so you got to make yourself stay centered. But like I said, that's why I dig Dave Smith. That's why I dig his perception about politics. And not that I have to agree with everything that he's saying, but the righteous anger is very real. And the condescension is even worse, because if anybody has been paying attention, and I have to say, another reason that I came on here this evening to talk about what's going on is for this reason. I wanted to give the Democrats at least a week to see if they were even going to attempt to come to their senses in regards to what's going on here, how they have completely lost the plot, how the entire party or whatever apparatus of the populism within the party has completely shifted to Trump. It's not even that they've necessarily shifted over to the GOP. They've just simply shifted to Trump and whatever direction he's going to take it. Because the one thing we've noticed already, especially as Trump is trying to line up the people that he wants confirmed for positions within his administration, is that he is at odds with Mitch McConnell. And that is definitely a person you want to be at odds with. If you're agreeing with Mitch McConnell politically, then you have a problem. And so I like the direction that they are going in. Granted, I don't see them necessarily barking up a very loud bark for universal health care and obviously a living wage. Maybe they push for tuition-free trade schools. I could definitely see something like that happening. And that would be wonderful if they did. But Dave Smith really captures that populist energy that I think we so desperately want to hear and should want to hear. Why not? He really is somebody who speaks truth to power. And frankly, I haven't even listened to the length of his interview with Rogan as of yet. I will, So I think Dave Smith is really good. He's also very funny. He's a funny guy, that guy. And what direction is our country going in? And I think there are a lot of people that we can look at in terms of what type of an autopsy were the Democrats going to do post this election. Now, we're not going to get into Bernie tonight. We're going to get into him tomorrow night with Steve Grumbine. That we will talk about at length. And then we will talk about how DNC chair, who should have been either canned or stepped down already, Jamie Harrison, responded, as did a lot of other people. But I will say that the responses from a lot of these people is very, very telling. And the consultant class clearly has a lot to say about it. Now, like I said, we're going to save that. Colin, I'm going to save that clip of the MSNBC consultant for tomorrow. We'll save the CNN consultant for tomorrow. But the one that I do want to talk about is The View. And the reason I want to talk about The View is because The View happens to be the most watched daytime show in America, of course, specifically, predominantly with women. Cooper, we're going to get to Pakman last. This isn't going to be a long show. It's going to be maybe 45 to an hour, but we will get to that. And so I want you all to hear the reaction, because this really is the embodiment of just how disconnected they are. And they tried to see through some of the reality of what's going on here, but even that can't pierce through, especially with Sunny Houston, who's the worst of the. I mean, Sunny Houston has superseded even Whoopi and Joy Behar as the biggest blowhards, on that show, which is amazing. And of course, everybody's a racist, sexist, misogynist, and all that shit. There was no wake-up call to that. They kept going with it. So here's what they had to say.
Agree.
All right.
I think that I'd like to reframe the conversation. I think Bernie Sanders is wrong. I think the more relevant question actually is, what is wrong with America? I think what is wrong with our country that the Republican Party would choose as a candidate and support a candidate who is an insurrectionist, who is an election denier, who is someone who is twice impeached, 34-time convicted felon, someone who has been accused of alleged sexual misconduct by.
You see, the thing you're going to have to remember about a person like Sunny Houston is that she's never going to say any of the things that happened under the watch of Kamala Harris. No, this is all about catnip and how to just continue to thumb the eye of the will of the majority. And let's be clear, Kamala Harris outspent Trump almost 3-1 on this election. I mean, you want to talk about democracy? Yeah, they were really fighting to save democracy. But in reality, all it was is that this is just a personal vendetta against Trump. Sunny Houston doesn't give a damn about working people. That doesn't even enter her mind. She's trying to do a mea culpa right now, and all it is just talking about how terrible Trump is, not a moment of self-reflection about how bad things are and how Trump ultimately ended up in the White House again. Like I said, I gave them a week to see if they would have any come to Jesus moment. My goodness, they are not only not having that, they're saying that the party doesn't go far enough to the right on all issues, not just Israel. And Sunny Houston is basically telling you that you're all a bunch of hooligans for not listening to them and doing as you're told.
26 women found liable for sexual abuse. What is wrong with this country that they would choose a message of divisiveness, of xenophobia, of racism, of misogyny over a message of inclusiveness, a message for the people, by the people, of the people. That is what the problem is. It's the Republican Party.
But can I say something before we can do a second? The Democrats are the ones. They are the party that cares for the blue collar voter. The Democrats are the ones who put in Social Security, Medicare, Medicaid, union protection,
ACA,
unemployment insurance, and Obamacare.
So basically, what they want to talk about is stuff that happened between 60 and 80 years ago. That's what they want to talk about. not the Democratic Party that completely sold out to Wall Street, Silicon Valley, and the military-industrial complex. That cannot be part of the conversation. And the idea that you think Obamacare is good policy is unbelievable. But hell, what a shock. This is what it is. And this is how they try to sell it. And they always sell it in the most condescending way possible. There is no self-reflection. There is no question of, well, maybe these policies aren't so good. Just a thought. Just a thought. Small thought. Just a little taste. Just a little taste. You know, I want to get out of here. I want to get a little something out of this Joy Reader. Get her to talk about what the real problems are over here. But she ain't talking about none of that. She's talking about the things that she thinks matter to the broads that are watching the show on the daytime TV when I got nothing better to do. That's what I'm talking about. So let's see what else the New Yorker's got to say.
The Republican Party doesn't give a rat's patootie about
clearly
it.
they didn't convince the voters of
So
yeah.
all I can deduce is that it's the messaging. It didn't get through to people. They're not paying attention. That's all.
Yeah,
because the Democrats have always been for the working people.
Exactly. And the Republicans don't care about
I think
it.
that the message of the Democrats sounded elitist. You don't have value in the society.
They
if you don't
sounded
have a college
that way,
degree.
but when you look at the proof,
yeah,
they weren't.
but Joy, it's condescending. It's condescending. There is a
condescending.
The way that the left speaks to its voters. It really is.
A message of joy and inclusiveness?
No, the message of not being educated, being dumb, and what's wrong with America.
Who said that?
Sonny just did.
What is wrong with
Joy,
America?
my point here is that
that's not what Kamala Harris said.
No.
That's what I'm saying.
My point is, I don't blame Joe Biden. I don't blame Kamala Harris. Go back as far as you want. I blame a messaging within the Democratic Party.
You don't blame the Republican Party
Can I just
at
finish
all?
my point, please? I obviously have a problem. Anyone has a problem with Donald Trump. The bigger question should be, yes, Sonny, why did they vote for him?
Yes.
In sweeping.
So they need to be introspective.
No, we need to be introspective. If we voted for Kamala Harris, we need to say what didn't resonate with the voters. Do you know what didn't resonate with the voters? When they were saying we don't feel safe and the left focused on defund the police and bail reform.
Yeah.
When they said we're worrying about, can I just finish? Let me just finish real quickly. When they were focused on
It's only an hour show, ladies.
Joy, when they were focused on renaming schools, there were people saying, hey, students are destroying colleges. I paid for that. I sent them there. They can't learn. And everyone apologized for it and didn't want to attend to it. They also denied the border was a crisis and kept saying, no, it's fine. This is not a...
There was a border bill, though. There was a border bill.
Yes, but Joy, my point is they screened. They didn't vote for him because he's a racist or a misogynist. They voted because they needed help in their everyday lives.
But Sarah, they voted.
And so now, and let's be very clear, and there's a reason why I'm playing this, and this will probably be the last time I ever play a clip of The View. I'm only playing it simply because I wanted to see what type of a reaction they were going to give in regards to the election. And it's pretty much on par with what I expected them to say. And so what I see here is an elitist blonde who identifies the problem, but is basically saying, yeah, it's just in the way that you talk about it that isn't good enough. No, it's actually the policy. Kamala Harris's policies were horrifically bad. He was to the right of Trump on almost every consequential issue, especially foreign policy, which is what the chief executive is primarily responsible for anyway. The most lethal fighting force in the world, oh, that's what we're going to have. Yeah, that's going to sell really well to people that already are on the uptake on what's going on with how we spend money in this country. Or should I say outside this country, because we spend a lot of it. We really do. We have a basically $1 trillion annual budget for defense, but it's not defense. It's imperialism. It's military overreach. And now you do have some people in the GOP that is trying to basically drive the ship for Trump in the right direction. I hope they do. They're talking a good game right now, but you got to walk the walk. Like I said, tomorrow night, we're going to talk about Pompeo and Haley. Obviously, the pressure that the MAGA movement is putting on Trump is very real and it's working. I hope they continue. I hope they stick to their guns. I hope this really is a sort of libertarian takeover, especially on foreign policy of the GOP. That would be wonderful. And anyone who says otherwise is a fool. But the condescension here really speaks to where the liberal class feels It's kind of like the reactions that you're seeing online when it comes to Gaza. The reaction is, well, you voted for this, so I hope Gaza gets it now. Again, the privilege is real, the condescension is real, and the self-reflection is non-existent. We'll finish this out.
How do you know that? Because there's every stat coming out on the people willing to self-reflect are showing these.
Oh, wait, they're going to say I'm a racist and a misogynist in the exit poll?
You really think 74 million people are racist?
Every racist and misogynist voted for Donald Trump. Not everyone.
Are you sure about that? Every racist and misogynist voted for Trump? Are you sure they didn't vote for Kamala Harris? You make such a blanket statement like you actually can speak to how everybody believes. Let me tell you something. In my opinion, the biggest bigots in society, the biggest racists in society are actually liberals. And why do I say that? Because they look down on everybody who isn't them. They see themselves as superior, hence racist or bigoted. That's the meaning. That's what it is. If somebody who's white and doesn't like a black person, but they're on the same playing field in terms of economic opportunity, that doesn't make them a racist. It just makes them an idiot. This is where the real bigotry comes from. Oh, what the hell do they know? They can't pay their bills. They can't do this. Oh, who cares about that? That's not that important. Yeah, it's not important to you because you live a wealthy life. You live in the 1%, and they really live in the 1% of 1%ers. They do. It's not just the money, it's the fame, it's the prestige, it's the open doors to the special places that no one can get to. And they really like to put their point down at the average person, especially Sunny Houston and Joy Behar. Joy hides it a little bit better. Sunny doesn't hide shit. Like, she really lets it go. And this is, again, a reflection of why they're going to continue to lose, and they're going to lose big.
That voted for Donald Trump was a racist and misogynist.
I agree with that.
Everyone swept. They swept every category. And the reason they did is to say, hey, guys, no excuses this time.
Yeah. Look,
they lost everything.
A country that allows its environment to be ravaged, its children to be shot, its wealth to be hoarded, its workers to be exploited, its poor to starve, its cops to murder.
So you think America's the
country
problem?
in trouble.
So America's
so we
problem, and
Trump is not going to make it better.
Anna, hold it for the next segment, right? We'll be right back. Hold it. Yeah.
And like trained seals, they clap. It really is kind of incredible. I am happy, Adam. I can see that you are. I know that you are a very big Trump supporter, and that's great. I'm glad you're happy. Like I said, I, unlike a lot of other people, am going to give him a chance. I will give Trump a chance. I think everybody should. And if he fucks up bad, he's going to get it just like Biden and Harris did. I gave Biden and Harris a chance. And let me tell you, Biden dropped the ball in like the first week. Didn't fight for the PRO Act and said that the parliamentarian would not allow him to pass a $15 minimum wage. Oh, well. And let's not forget how far to the right the party ultimately moved. It wasn't just that they ended up with Liz Cheney and Dick Cheney in the ranks. That was a culmination of everything that they did over the 4-year term. And one more small clip I want to play from that. The following day, even in an attempt to have some degree of reflection, they have nothing. This is exactly, specifically Sunny Houston, so here's what she had to say.
Finally, we talk a lot about these different demographics and these assumptions of where they're going to go. Latinos in Texas, a district that's 97% Latino, went 75 percentage points for Donald Trump. Why?
Misogyny.
It's on the border.
It's
the border
misogyny.
crisis.
I'm glad that Sunny Houston is the spokesperson for the Democratic Party. One of several. Keep speaking. Please do, because the party can't die fast enough. You are allowing the nosedive. You know, they say that in politics, if you're a Republican, it's death by a nosedive. If you're a Democrat, it's death by 1,000 paper cuts. I don't know. I think Sonny's doing a great job of accelerating the demise as quickly as possible. So rip off that Band-Aid, baby. Rip it off. Telling Hispanics that live on the border that it's not because of economics or safety from Mexico, it's misogyny. That's the reason.
It was on their doorstep. And they were begging people to care about it for years. We need to take some lessons.
That's what that was.
The lessons are not
Knock, knock. Who's there? Oh my gosh, it's Whoopi.
Yes, Queen. That's what they're thinking. But like I said, don't forget who watches these particular shows, this particular show. The very people that are, in many ways, the funders of the Democratic Party. That is who that message is catered to. It's catered to those very people. It's not catered to people like us. It's not catered to working class, to middle class, to entrepreneurs. It's catered to the liberal class. That's who they are. That's who their audience is. And that is who the Democratic Party cares about. The audacity of them to say that they care about working people, they don't. I'm not saying the GOP does, but you got a better shot now with somebody like Trump than you ever did with somebody like Biden. There are people who are going to say that the CHIPS Act was great. It was okay. It did some things on the margins, just like the infrastructure bill, which in many ways was terrible. It was such a corporate giveaway, and people can't. And again, are there, like I said, things on the margins? Yes. Just like Trump did in his administration, the axing of the Trans-Pacific Partnership, the ability to not, again, he was a drone king, but without starting those new wars, there was more of an economic opportunity at home. But he still fucked up and did bad things. So what I'm hoping is that, and it's true, Zane is right. There's plenty of entrepreneurs that are a big part of the liberal class, but it all depends on whether or not you care about the community. You could be an entrepreneur, but if the only thing you care about is the money, then your community will suffer. And that would be unfortunate. I wanted to come on this evening and do a brief takedown of anybody who's been following me, following Jen, following our show. And thank you, Not Bloody Likely. That really means a lot. For any of you that are here, any support that you can, and thank you, Ghislaine. And yes, if you haven't smashed the like button, make sure that you do. Got about 70 people watching right now, which again, our numbers are picking up, which is great. Let's get to 100 live stream viewers on the regular, maybe 125, 150. You never know. Channel's growing. I remember the days when we were happy to get 20 people on the live stream. But every little bit counts. Every opportunity we have to grow really means a lot. And if you are so inclined, please go over to patreon.com/generational change for as little as $5 a month. You become a supporter of our small but mighty channel. And we are growing by the day. Our numbers are picking up, and we're very happy that that's happening. And it's all because of you guys. And if you believe in transforming politics into service, which is our goal, we are through with adhering to the whims of the two-party duopoly, specifically corporate special interests that have captured our government. We are intending to fight back, and that's what we're doing. And there will be many things ahead that will happen. As you guys know, I am moving to the Florida Panhandle. Jen will be here in South Florida. We will still be doing our show. And I do believe that there could be some very positive days ahead. But in terms of the movement, we have to figure out. Come on, Adam. You know you want to contribute. If you are so inclined, remember, when you do Patreon, you are not giving any money to Google. I know people don't necessarily want to be giving money through the Patreon, would prefer to do it through the Patreon system than do it through a super chat, because I believe they take about 20 to 25%. So you can do that, or you can also go to Cash App, $Gen Change. So as I said, any amount of support is very appreciated if you can do it. And my esteemed colleague wants to know, what did Pakman do? Well, as we wind down our short abbreviated show this evening, it is 11:30. I don't want to keep you guys up too late, but we're very appreciative that you're all here. So thank you, Tony. Really appreciate that. And like I said, make sure you smash the like button, share, subscribe, do all those wonderful things we ask you to do. Thank you, Donald James. Really appreciate the consideration. And the same is true for anybody. And like I said, Cash App is also a place where you can go to contribute if you so choose. So when I observe a lot of people in the media space, the people that do what we do, I am very aware of the people who are on the right side of things when it comes to doing this, because there is a cause behind their efforts. Jordan Chariton, obviously, is status quo. Steve Grumbine, who will be on tomorrow night, of the Real Progressives. Tim Black of the Tim Black Show. Jamal Thomas. Mike Figueredo of the Humanist Report. There are good people that are out there on both sides. I listen to conservative channels. There are things that I agree with and things I disagree with. But if there's one thing we can all agree on, is that there is a huge grifting class, not just the political consultants in DC, which we will talk about tomorrow, because they had a lot to say. And yes, Judge Napolitano, as Jen points out, is another good example. But if there is one person that I detest more than anybody else in this sphere, who is as big a jackass as anybody I've ever heard, and who is as condescending as anybody I've ever heard, it's David Pakman. He's as bad as it gets. And Pakman is as bad as it gets for a number of reasons. There's a lot of other people that are out there that do this, that suck to high heaven as well. But he is on a certain level of suck that I cannot even put into just a couple of words. It is a plethora of different references to describe this boy, because that's what he is. He's a boy. He is representative of that sort of femme male, liberal, elitist fuck who would never pick up a weapon to defend this country, couldn't physically defend himself against a guy even half his size. And he's the first person to say that we should go to war, as he's always done, specifically starting back in 2017, that we should have invaded down in, Venezuela and get their oil. And this is some guy that people actually want to listen to. Forget the fact that he's a genocidal maniac. And of course, again, not a surprise. But here's a person who somehow has a huge channel. And what does he do? All he does is basically talk about how Trump is a fascist and going to end the world, and how the Democrats have to win, and they're the good people. But this is a person who has no mission. He has no morals. It's a grift. It's a career, and he's made quite a career out of what he's doing. He is making a lot of money. A lot of money. Like hundreds of thousands of dollars a year, maybe more. I know this because I knew when Jimmy Dore had a few 100,000 subscribers that he was making like $500,000 a year. David Pakman has, I believe, over 2 million subscribers. It's amazing what this grift can do for people. It really is. And I don't like talking about other content creators unless there's some justice behind it. This time there is. This son of a bitch has been peddling the tireless, endless bullshit about how he supposedly is helping save democracy. And how Kamala Harris is the only way to save democracy, and we have to vote for her. Oh, and she's going to win. Did that too. And he was wrong. Dead wrong. And I think a lot of people that were supporting his channel really believed in the bullshit that he was selling. But it hurt his ego. It hurt it very badly. He couldn't take it. So what does he do? He puts out a video about how devastating it is that he lost 10,000 subscribers. But I don't want to ruin it for everybody. I'm going to play you the clip. This is what David Pakman had to say. Get your barf bags out.
When I woke up this morning, we had lost 5,000 YouTube subscribers.
That's a shame. It should have been 50,000.
Compared to where we were last night. Now, the first thing I thought was, is this a glitch? We've been on YouTube for 15 years or something like that. And subscribers always just go up. They just never go down. They go up.
Kind of sounds like a stock. Kind of sounds like the stock market, right? Because it always goes up. It can't possibly go down. Or housing prices can only go up, can't go down. And this is a guy, my God, it just, his expression, the turtleneck, everything, or excuse me, the zip up. He is the embodiment of upper class liberalism. And of course, he's in the Boston area of Massachusetts. So that should come as no surprise. Elitist to the hilt and completely in the bubble, complaining about, I lost 5,000 subscribers. That's not supposed to happen to me. I play the game. I do everything right. I suck up to the Democratic Party establishment and I shit on working people. What more am I supposed to do?
Is something wrong with my channel? Is someone attacking my channel? What's going on? So I started texting. And I texted Brian Tyler Cohen.
For anybody who doesn't know who Brian Tyler Cohen is, he is another of the shit liberty class. He is heavily protected by the Democratic Party establishment. He is another person who's basically associated with the Pod Save America guys. They are all adjacent to DC bureaucracy, punditry, you name it, within the Democratic Party. This is who these soy boys are. He's got more names. He ain't done.
And I texted Tyler Cohen and Brian Cohen and Brian Tyler, all of them. I texted all of them.
He texted all of the Cohens, and we'll just leave it at that.
I texted Jesse Dollemore. I texted Luke Beasley and Farron Cousins and Sam Cedar.
What do all of these guys have in common? I'll let you decide.
And every single one of our channels since last night is hemorrhaging subscribers. What is it that is going on? Here is a graphic. As you can see, subscribers just go up, 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 and they are down. It is not just YouTube subscribers. We are seeing record cancellations of paid memberships. Record cancellations.
I think this calls for a celebration. Jen, I would do a bong hit right now if I were you. Hopefully this is the start of a trend. I hope it doesn't stop. I really don't. Because the way he's made his money is basically through the pain and suffering of other people. He does not give a shit about anybody but himself. If this doesn't spell it, I don't know what does. The idea that he's doing a mea culpa over losing 5,000 to 10,000 subscribers on a 2 million subscriber channel with God knows how much fucking money he makes with Patreon, makes with advertising, makes with clips. This guy is living a good fucking life. He takes the slightest hit. He's not going to know what the fuck to do. And he makes a video like this. I hope his channel goes into the fucking toilet. It won't, but it should.
These are the people that keep the show running. Now, for a moment, I thought, if it's just YouTube, maybe YouTube is purging people who are inactive subscribers. And once a year, usually YouTube does this and you see a little decline and then numbers go back up. They're not doing it. They're not doing it. And if that were the case, we wouldn't be seeing paid membership cancellations on the website.
Good. Maybe you could go to barber college.
So now I understand what is going on. It's terrifying, but it is happening. A lot of people are checking out. So my request to you today is, please resubscribe to the YouTube channel. When I woke up this morning.
Please resubscribe to my channel and give me more money. This is incredible. And the reason it's incredible is because he's doing this and Trump just got reelected. Don't you have a resistance crowd that you need to play to for the next 4 years? He's a really terrible person, that Pakman, terrible guy. Really terrible person. I don't care for that person. He really doesn't know what he's talking about. You're damn right, Daryl. It's like a disease. Ethan, I believe you're new to my channel, our channel. But yeah, that's an interesting comparison. And Bridget, that's on purpose. The lack of insight is on purpose. He is just like Sonny Houston, only he's on YouTube and she's on ABC. That's the difference. They both think exactly the same. I guarantee you, Chad, that is a big part of it. Now, did he have 5,000 paying subscribers? Probably not. I don't think can't even think of a channel. I mean, I don't even think Rogan has for paying subscribers, but when you think about it, that does not come as any surprise because that's what they care about. The difference between somebody like Jen and I versus somebody like Pakman. I mean, obviously there's a lot in terms of political disposition. However, the big thing to remember, that's the big difference here, is that we do this because we actually believe in this stuff. We have a passion for what we're fighting for. We are not doing this to get rich off of people trying to play on their emotions and fears and concerns about the world. We're trying to fight for a better world, and we're trying to bring all of you guys with us. That's a very good question, Michael. I do believe that there are ways to implement that in terms of the state budget. One of the ways that education has improved in a state like Colorado, for example, is due to cannabis legalization. 10% of the proceeds goes to benefit public education. I would be so inclined as to want to ensure that that money could be allocated for vocational purposes. You want to learn to weld, you should be able to get that without having to pay. You want to learn how to be a carpenter, you want to learn how to be an electrician, you want to learn how to be a plumber, you want to learn how to work on a rig. As far as I'm concerned, these are things in society that we need. So let's teach people how, again, it's like fishing. Give a person a fish, they'll eat for a day. You teach them how to fish, they can eat for the rest of their life. That's the same thing. That's what we're going for here. Does that sound Republican-y in terms of my disposition? Yeah, maybe, but it's true. Teresa, thank you so much. You're also one of the best supporters of our channel. We cannot thank you enough. You really are an amazing person. It really means a lot. You see, now that is probably what happened. Maybe he did lose. If he lost 5,000 subscribers and 100 of them were paying subscribers, you know what? You do the math on that. That's a chunk of money right there. It adds up. Maybe it's 1,000, maybe it's 1,500. You never know. But that's money. That's real money. And that matters. And the viewership going down will matter. But he in particular, Mr. Pakman, is much like Sonny Houston in that they epitomize why people are done with the Democratic Party. They are done with neoliberalism. And they're done with being talked down to. And they should be. I know I am. Michael, I'm not sure why you donated again, but thank you very much. I appreciate it. And it is the same question. I'm not, you know what? I would think it would have to depend on what I would look at it this way. And I think that while we don't want to get too much into the nitty gritty necessarily, because it could go in a lot of different ways, I think tuition-free public college, for example, I think it really needs to be based on study. There are certain things in college that you don't have to do in terms of vocational. You could be doing this in terms of necessity. For example, I think if people want to be doctors, that should be covered. You can't, you can have enough lawyers, we know that, but you really can't have enough well-trained doctors. And that is always necessary, especially if we're ever going to transition to a single-payer healthcare system. So I would look at it as budgeting it in for specific areas of study that are needed. I don't want to downplay people who want to study maybe the fine arts, for example. And I understand that there are people who are not going to like that they're picking and choosing. But what I will say is that you got to start somewhere. You know, it's kind of like, you know, Grumbine has his position on this and we disagree, which is fine. We're allowed to disagree. But I do believe a lot of these policies are just going to have to pass at the state level. It's really the only way it's ever going to happen. If we pass it at the state level, what could ultimately end up happening is significant infrastructural change because people are going to want it. You know, kind of like a lot of people want to come to the United States. Well, the same is true if certain areas start making that change. And so, as I said, again, make sure that you go to patreon.com/generational change for as little as $5 a month. Become a supporter of our small but mighty channel. And yes, I will not mention other channels' names, but if you are looking for another channel to come and support, maybe you are tired of what some of the other grifting channels out there have been spewing, and maybe you have been a supporter of their channel. Come join our side. We've always kept it straight for 4 years, and we're still going. I think we got a lot more good to do. Kyle, unfortunately, has made a decision. He's decided the direction he wants to go in. I know Kyle personally. I'm not going to bash him, but he is part of that class. I don't agree with what he does now. Not even a little bit. So you go your separate way. Do not compare Kyle Kulinski to David Pakman. Not the same. Not even close. Pakman's a bad guy. He's a bad guy. And he's a pompous ass on top of everything else. Yes. A lot of the things that we're trying to do to make the change, it's not hard. A lot of these things are just common sense. And I got really worked up because I am done with I'm done with people like Pakman. And everybody should be too. Anybody who grifts, there's other people out there. Again, I don't need to name them. You know who they are. You can surmise who we're talking about. They're not in it. Again, they build their channels off of Trump hysteria, among other things. That's not what we do. We care about the mission. We care about the message. And it looks like that's what we're doing, Jen. That's our goal. And you know what? If RFK really has a prominent role in the Trump administration, and it does appear that he will, if he could start facilitating a movement away from the literal poison that millions of people ingest every day, think about how much quicker we could get to a single-payer healthcare system if society was so much healthier and people didn't have to depend on pharmaceuticals anymore. Because that's where so much of the power comes from. Who do you think spends more money lobbying Capitol Hill than anyone else in terms of corporate special interests? It's private insurance and big pharma. That's the biggest conglomerate by far. We're a very unhealthy nation. Hi, Arlene. I would say that Patreon is better. Jen, fill me in on this. I think Patreon would be better than YouTube. Not that there's anything wrong with YouTube in terms of being a paid member, but I do believe on Patreon, we get to keep all of it, or just about all of it. So Jen agrees. Patreon is better. So if you are a paid member here, we would obviously recommend that you become a paid member or potentially switch. Whatever you're comfortable with. If you want to do both, that's great. But if not, if you want to switch, then obviously we would recommend Patreon, because obviously there's more bang for your buck. I think anybody could agree with that. And we do appreciate all the help. It does matter. Hey, the money that we get goes to our producer, Colin, who's a rock star. We can't say good enough things about him. He's also the producer for Status Quo News. We also have our friend Ben, who helps out with shorts. We have a little bit of cash, but we generally want to provide that for, generally good causes that are needed. Maybe once in a while, we'll have an opportunity to go out and get some sushi or something like that. But overall, we have a mission. And I hope you guys are enjoying this, because we got to 90 live stream viewers tonight. So it does look like we're growing. And that's great. And I hope you guys enjoy the message. I hope you guys appreciate the message. It really means a lot. I agree with you, Ruler. Dennis Kucinich is great. Would love to have him on the podcast. I tried to get Dan Osborne's attention. The only thing I'll say about Dan Osborne, and the big difference between him and Dennis Kucinich, is that Osborne, unfortunately, towards the end, decided to become a little too adjacent to the Democratic Party. And I do believe that cost him, because I do believe a lot of people that were going to be willing to come and vote for him decided, no, he's just going to end up caucusing with the Democrats. And I get it. I totally get it. He did a fundraiser with Julia Louis-Dreyfus. And yes, we do our Seinfeld shtick and all that, but Julia Louis-Dreyfus is heavily connected to the Democratic Party establishment. So that's not my cup of tea. And to the average person, it isn't theirs either. So I don't blame them. But yes, nevertheless, extremely proud of what Mr. Kucinich and Mr. Osborne were able to accomplish running outside of the two-party duopoly. It's very hard to do it. But we're also kind of trapped down here in Florida in many ways. And I think it's unfortunate, because it does look like Rick Scott is going to be the next Senate Majority Leader. And you think, my God, it's, he is the epitome of what we don't want the Republican Party to be. We're trying to get away from that. Maybe he's just going to be a loyal foot soldier to Trump. It isn't going to ask too many questions in terms of the populist direction he's trying to take things. We'll see. But what I do know is that the Democratic Party in this state is the embodiment of everything that's wrong overall with the party. And it's only going to get worse. So we have to rid ourselves of everything that's going on as it relates to this broken economic and political system. And if there is one thing that I have noticed, that I am sure a lot of you have noticed as well, as I said, I wanted to give the Democratic Party the opportunity to kind of right themselves just a little bit. They're not going to do it. Chris Murphy, agreed with Bernie Sanders. He's the senator. He's a junior senator from Connecticut. But it doesn't matter. They're not going to change. And you know how I know they're not going to change? It's not just their comments. It's the fact that they're looking for every which way possible. Every which way possible. To not only justify the loss by suggesting that Kamala ran a great campaign. She didn't. That she was a great candidate. She wasn't. And that the problem was that the Democratic Party went too far to the left. Yes, on niche social issues, not on economics, not when you say you have the most lethal fighting force, among other things. And as Arlene points out, yeah, at least Pompeo and Haley will not be in the administration. But that's just the start. There's a lot of swamp dwellers. There's a lot of neocons. There's a lot of neolibs. There's a lot of opportunists. They're there. But I do believe Trump has better people around him this time. That I believe. He's got more of a family, almost like a Godfather approach. That's the vibe I'm getting. I'm almost getting a vibe of Vito Corleone from Trump this time. But nothing is more important than the family. And so he's going to be a lot more sharp in terms of who's allowed in and who's not. And hopefully that's what's better for the nation. I agree, Ronwell. That is our job. And this isn't just for people that are in MAGA that support his movement. This is for all of us. This is the United States of America. And Donald Trump is our commander-in-chief, whether we like it or not. I want him to succeed. Maybe you don't. Just like the shit libs on social media that are saying, well, you got what you... Now you're really going to see how bad things are going to get in Gaza. Oh, really? Not like, oh, well, maybe we need to fight now. No. It's because they don't care. That's why they never brought it up. And they never pushed Kamala into a corner saying, you have to commit to implementing an arms embargo against Israel. No, because they don't care. At least with the Trump administration, you do have a semblance of a growing libertarian populist movement that is finished with war. And remember, a lot of times, especially since so much of the military support overwhelmingly is on the political right, a lot of these people served in Iraq and Afghanistan, and they're through with this shit. They can smell it from a mile away. They ain't having it. I commend Tucker Carlson for having his come to Jesus moment and recognizing that he was wrong for supporting the war in Iraq. And he's paid penance ever since. And he's been very on point when it comes to having an anti-war disposition, which is great. And we need a hell of a lot more of it. We don't have enough yet, but we'll see. Like I said, you're going to see some interesting ups and downs. And it does appear that total Zionist psychopath Elise Stefanik is going to have a prominent role in the Trump administration. She is being tapped to be the UN ambassador. Now, is that as consequential as being the Secretary of State or Secretary of Defense? No, but it's still important, and it still has a lot of sway. And if she's going up there saying that Israel could do whatever the hell they want, that's going to be a big problem. So we'll see what MAGA has to say about it. It's going to be a big part of it. I think you may be right, Chad. I think you may be right. I'm glad you guys think that Jen has what it takes to be the next AOC, but I got to tell you guys, it's not that there isn't this opportunity out there, that there isn't still this uprising of righteous economic populist movement with elements of not just the populism, but also socialism. What you have to remember is that because of what's happened, over the last several election cycles, specifically starting in 2016, 2020, and obviously this election cycle, the trust has been broken irrevocably, and it will never recover. Not in the Democratic Party. That trust is dead. So any hope of, oh, well, the Democrats are going to wake up. It doesn't matter if they wake up. The trust is over. Who is going to invest time, money, infrastructure for at least a year, if not more, to try to get a candidate to the finish line in a party that still has fucking super delegates? I wouldn't. Yes, it would. Canceling student debt doesn't mean shit if you don't have tuition-free public college and trade schools. Doesn't mean anything. It's just it's another crisis waiting to happen. Oh, look, Joe Biden canceled some student debt. You guys should go and look at the commentary of people that support the Biden-Harris administration. We've got everybody on our channel. That's one thing we're very proud of. We have support from all over the place, including Biden-Harris supporters. And that's fine. But they're going out there trying to defend Biden's record. There's really not a lot to defend. And this idea that he's the most pro-labor president of our lifetime, he might be, but that bar is so fucking low, it's below the table. And he broke a railroad strike. He's the first sitting president to break a major strike since Reagan broke the air traffic controller strike in 1981. So, barking up the wrong tree. But we will talk about Bernie Sanders tomorrow night. We will talk about a lot of things tomorrow night. Make sure you smash that like button. Make sure you're subscribed. Make sure that you share. It's really amazing how so few people have ever woken up to the realities of what I did to this country economically. I really have gotten away with murder, and then some. We will have a bootlicker tomorrow night. I think you guys will like who we've picked. And of course, Bernie's going to be here to talk. You'll have a good time. So, appreciate you guys. Jen appreciates you. We may have turned a corner with our channel. We hope it lasts. Appreciate and love you all. See you tomorrow night.